Welcome to the Creator School, Library Edition. I'm your host, Eric Koester, and in these mini sessions, we ask our guests what they're reading, and they share their favorite books, podcasts, and more. Plus, we find out what is rattling around their brains for them to create next. Time to build your reading lists and add to the stack of books on your nightstand. Creator Library is open. Well, so I want to end with a last little thing that I do. I always want to find out what other people are reading and thinking about. So the last little thing I want to do is a sort of a rapid fire set of things to hear what you're reading, what you're interested in. So first thing I want to ask is what's the book or books that you're reading right now, or you're most excited to read next, and why?
You know, I read nonfiction, and I read very broadly across a variety of subjects, but I tend to find myself at various points in time getting really deep into specific topics. So I'm really into agriculture and food. And
cool.
The last book that I read in that area is called The End of Food, which I loved. And I would highly recommend that. I just finished reading last weekend. I was sick with a cold, and I read Molly's Game, which is a little bit
yes,
right? The movie that's out. A friend of mine recommended the movie, and I thought, well, the book's always better.
That's right. That's right.
That.
Yep.
And so I read that last weekend. I'm currently reading the book Evicted, which is about the rental market in the U.S. economy, because I'm working on a policy piece about home ownership, and I thought it was important to understand that perspective of the rental market.
An author is working on a book with me right now called Craft Beef. So your fascination with agriculture, looking at the shift away from an industrialized beef nation into this kind of concept of craft beef and small independent farmers, and some of the things that we see with Japanese beef and Wagyu and sort of these very ancient family farms and breeds of cattle. So it's a fascinating book. I learned a ton in it, and I'll send it your way once she's sort of finished.
Well, one of my summer reads was a book that came out called Big Chicken. So that's another good read if you're interested after beef, moving into poultry.
I love it. And then the last two questions, what's the book that you give as a gift the most besides your own?
Yeah. Let's see. There are so many of those. I give a lot of memoirs written by women as
That's
gifts.
Great. Yeah.
So, and I'm a huge traveler, so a lot of them involve travel. So I've had people read Beyond the Sky and the Moon, which is a book about Bhutan. There's a book called Shutter Babe, which is written by a classmate of mine about her adventures as an international war photojournalist. I really like The Gift from the Sea by Anne Morrow Lindbergh. It's a very small kind of reflective book. So I tend to give those probably as gifts the most.
I oftentimes give the book about James Madison, I guess, the first Supreme Court justice, who I always find to be fascinating to share. So I'm with you. The memoir is an interesting one because you don't often read those on your own. So that's great. And the last question for you, and then I'll let you get on to the rest of the day, is every author I've ever met is thinks about their next book they're going to write. So what's the next book that will come out from Diane if you think about it?
Oh, I have a couple of ideas. I'm not really sure, to be honest. I mean, I think I'm good on the gig economy and the future of work. I think I will continue to write articles on that. I have a lot of different particular topics I'd like to delve into, but I think I'm good with the book.
Yeah.
I write a lot about the venture capital industry, and I've written large, reports, and I've written a number of articles, and I do a lot of speaking. There might be a book there. I'm also interested in the healthcare system, so there might be a book there. I'm interested in food and ag, and I'm also interested in this idea of home. And thinking of writing something exploratory on that.
I love it. Yeah, it's one of those things. Once you realize just the process of learning that goes into creating a book, I'm kind of like you. It's like I'm curious about all these things. I want to go through that process and discover, and it kind of makes you into a learn-it-all when you go through that whole process. I'm sure as you went through the process of writing your book, you were like, wow, now I know way more things than I ever thought I would know.
Yeah, and that was my third book, and I go through the process and I think, oh, that is terrible. It's so tedious. It takes forever. It's painful. I'm tired at the end. And And then I have kind of a year or so, and then I start thinking about the next one. It's a little bit crazy.
It's amazing.
Look, it's not a frivolous undertaking.
That's right. You have to sort of commit to it, but I think
you really do.
It is one of the most fulfilling things I've ever got the chance to do as well.
Absolutely.
And so I think, I'm fascinated by your book and the ways, sort of the premises behind it, because I do think that thinking about this world of creators and how they are creating their own portfolios and creating their own life and career, I think it does really fit into your book, The Gig Economy. And so highly recommend it. I think it has a lot of exercises for people. And I do think that the biggest thing that people can do is just own the fear. And so I think if you start there, the rest of this stuff, as you said, it's all solvable. There's platforms, there's tools, there's ways to do it. You can learn from people, but you sort of got to take that first step of saying, all right, I believe the thesis and here's how I address those fear questions.
Yes. And that's why I think the side gig is such an incredible opportunity, because it really does allow you to dip the toe in and not make the whole leap. So that can go a long way towards making people more comfortable with the transition.
Well, terrific. Well, Diane, thank you so much for the time. For everyone, just to say it again, the book is The Gig Economy, the complete guide to getting better work, taking more time off, and financing the life you want. This has been fascinating, and I think I'm glad that you're talking about this in a way that is sort of really demystifies it from, hey, that's just an Uber driver, but really to understand that MBAs and business school students and even people, thinking about the next stage of their career can really attack this. So thanks so much for the time today.
Yeah, thanks for having me and for the great questions. This was super fun.
I appreciate it.